Let's create a new layer above the sky layer for stars. We want that to be a screen composite method. And we'll want to select the stars nozzle. It's at the bottom of the nature category. Works better if you just click with your mouse to use this brush. And when we place these, we're going to try to keep most of our stars towards the top where it's darker, and then they'll become less and less numerous as you move towards the bottom. Right around here where it's light, we don't really want there to be any stars at all near the horizon. So I'm going to click, and these are going to be the major stars in the sky. Maybe these are the planets and the big celestial bodies that really stand out. So we only want there to be a few of these here and there. Something like that. And then we're going to add some more on another layer. So let's create a new layer, and let's call it small stars. This should also be a screen composite method. And then we'll use the pepper spray brush for this. You want the feature to be set pretty low for the small stars starting out. And you want there to be a balance of more smaller stars than larger stars. So we'll use 1 for the feature for the smaller ones. We want these to be kind of a light blue so they look more distant. And I'm just going to click with the mouse to click in these stars, because that works better than painting does sometimes. You could try painting with your pen, but if you end up getting too many, it looks unnatural. So we want there to be a good even distribution. We'll increase the feature to 2, and we'll make our stars a little bit lighter. And we'll use fewer of these. We'll increase our feature to 4. I'm doubling it each time. And we'll make these almost white. Maybe we'll change this to yellow now. And we'll just do a couple clicks this time of those, and then that's about as big as we want to get. You don't want to get too big with your stars because they're not going to look natural. It's generally better if they're smaller. So now we want a few of these to really pop out and glow. So what we'll do is we'll create a new layer. We'll call it Star Glow. We'll make it a screen composite method. We'll take the glow brush and we'll pick out a few stars here and there. What'll be easier is if you just hide the small stars layer and you focus on these major stars that you have. It's part of why we singled them out. And with that glow brush, we'll want to look at what the hue of the star is currently. So this one's kind of a yellow-orange, so we could pick a dark orange. And we'll make our brush slightly bigger than the star, and we'll just tap and wiggle the pin around in a tight little circle. And that'll just add a little bit of sparkle to that, and then you can use a bigger brush to make it glow and give it a halo. See, that could be a planet. And then we can pick out one of these blue ones over here, so we'll shift the hue towards that blue. We'll brighten this star. Some of them you can give this little cross shape that makes it look like it's kind of glowing. We can use kind of a light blue to make that one glow. You don't want to do all of these, you just want to do a few so that it's not overwhelming or distracting. Use a dark blue on this star here to make it glow a little bit more. Give it a halo. And we'll do just one more here. You can do as many as you want. We'll turn the small stars back on, and now you can see we have a really nice looking sky. Now you can leave it like this, or you can do the effect that I'm going to do and make it look like it's kind of in motion, because when you're doing these long exposure shots, the stars kind of move in the sky, and it makes a very interesting effect on your photograph. So I like to kind of simulate photographs in my paintings, and we're going to do that here. So you may want to save a copy of your artwork. I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to do a save as. I always like to do a save as when I'm going to do major changes, and that major change is going to be merging these star layers together. So I'm going to select them all, and then I'm going to do Control E to merge them. I'm going to change the name of this layer to stars, and I'm going to change it back to a screen composite method. And then we're going to go to Effects, Focus, Zoom Blur. You have to move your preview to where you can kind of see some of your stars. So this is too much zoom. This is going to look like warp speed. So we're going to take this down to 1, the lowest setting that you can do, and we'll go to OK. And what that's going to do is that's barely going to blur these stars. The ones at the edge are going to get blurred a little bit more, and that kind of gives it this spatial effect. I think it looks cool. It makes it feel more like a sky, and it softens the stars. So now we're ready to add the finishing touches. Let's add a multiply layer as the topmost layer, and let's call it Tint. And we'll select one of these light blues from the sky here, maybe something like this, and we will fill with that color. Now that's going to tint it, and then we'll reduce the opacity a little bit to something very low, and we'll do a before and after. What that's going to do is that's going to give everything just a little bit of a blue cast, and it'll help kind of unify all of your colors in this piece. We'll add another layer for the vignette. We'll make that a multiply composite method as well. We use that same blue color with the digital airbrush to vignette the top a little bit, and especially the bottom and the bottom corners. You can even do the sides a little bit too to draw the focus in towards the center. You can see that really helps to bring this together and make it look like a night scene. And of course you can turn down the opacity of that vignette a little bit to make it a better blend. Now let's do a quick check of our value structure. So I'm going to add a new layer as the topmost layer and call it value check. Set the composite method to color, and we will fill it with black as our primary color. And now we can see our image in black and white. You want to make sure, again, that things that are more distant are lighter in value than things that are in the foreground. So you can sample the dark colors and see the value of this horizon is 80. The darker area of the hill is 26. And the darkest areas of the shadows are 11. There can be some exceptions here and there. It's really up to you to decide how you want to balance these out. If something is obviously really, really light, like an egg or something in the foreground, it's still going to be very, very light and white compared to something like this tree that's silhouetted. So you have to use your own judgment at some point. But if you do see any severe imbalance in any of the values, you can always go back to all of these layers and you can correct them. You can either paint over them, add tints, or you can go to the effects menu and you can do the tonal control, adjust colors to add value or saturation and so on. So we'll go ahead and turn this off now that we're done with it. And we don't need the sketch or the value check anymore if we're done painting, which I think we are. Let's go ahead and do a save as to save another copy of our artwork, because we're going to drop some layers and do some blending. First of all, what we'll do is we'll go to the land back, and we will hold shift and we'll select the sky, and we will merge those layers. We'll go to that land back layer now, which is the land and the sky, and we will use the blur brush. Now the reason why we're doing this is because this is kind of isolating the background from the foreground, so we can blur without having to worry about blurring our hill here in the foreground or a tree. And you want to make sure that the most distant hill is the blurriest. But overall we want to blur all of these distant hills. We won't worry about our stars, those already got blurred. And then what we will do is we will do a drop all, and now we can just blend over everything. So we'll do this tree first, then we'll do the hill along the edge, and then overall we'll do the edge of the foreground hill. Then we'll use a big brush to kind of do some of the foreground in general here. I think that looks pretty good for the blurring. Now, if you find that your painting is too dark, what you can do is you can duplicate your canvas layer. So what you'll do is you'll do a select all, and then you will copy and you will paste. So I'm going to do copy and then paste in place. And that basically just duplicates this layer that I had dropped. So I have one layer underneath it and one above it that looks the same. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Effects, and I'm going to go to Tonal Control and Equalize. And what this is going to do is this is really going to pump up the contrast here and make the whites whiter and the darks darker, kind of equalize everything out. So it's going to make the color look way better. You can play around with these settings here. This little triangle here you can drag left and right, and same thing with this one, and you can play with this. Most of the time the general setting is going to be good, so I'm going to go to OK. Now we don't want this over the whole piece, we might just want it over part of it. So what we're going to do is we are going to go to the layer here and create a mask, and then we will just instantly fill the mask with black, and that's going to conceal the effect. And then wherever we want the effect, we'll paint with white and the digital airbrush, which is going to be mainly on the horizon here. So this kind of lets you paint with light, and I'm doing long kind of strokes that taper off as I come away from the horizon here. Something like that really helps. You can play with the opacity if you want to reduce it a little bit. I think something that's subtle works a little bit better, because overall we still want this to be pretty dark. You don't want it to be so dark that it looks like it's got bad lighting, but you want it to be darker on the outside and then lighter in the middle and have a good balance of both. And this effect really helps to do that. So now I think we have a finished painting. If you want to, you can add a new layer for a signature. We'll go ahead and save this as our final copy. And I'm going to do a drop all. Going to go to Save As again. I'm going to save this as a TIFF. I'll call it Print. I'm going to go to Canvas, Resize, and I'm going to uncheck Constrain File Size, change the resolution to 72, change the measurement to inches on both of these, change the height to 11 and width to 14, and go to OK. Now it's resized smaller for the web. I'll go to Save As. I'm going to change it to Web and save it as a PNG. Go to Save. Now we have a final copy that we can submit as our completed assignment. So I hope you had fun painting this desert. I'll see you again in the final lesson, lesson number 4.